No one knows what it means, but it's provocative. Gets the people going.
I'll just start by giving a reason why uh, I decided to invite you in this workshop, because I think it was really important to highlight the skill of storytelling now, because I think the meaning of a good project is changing in the industry now. And it's not just about having nice sketches and nice volumes and nice renders. Even AI is doing that now. So uh, nowadays people are looking for, quality uh, vision behind a project, uh, not just another sketch project. They are looking for a vision. They are looking for a story. And it's really inspiring to see how you, with your GSE projects, how you do the storytelling through your animations, the music you choose, the sound you choose. It really elevates the project to another level, and it really helps to sell the project, like communicate it to the audience that it was meant for.
Yeah, I think
So
yeah, same for me. We talked a bit about this before, and you mentioned the fact about talking about one project or another to basically bring down the project and explain the project. But people will see after, you guys will see, I'm going to talk about the CC3 project from JAC. No panic if some people haven't seen the video or anything like this. I've prepared something to show you after. But yeah, I think I'll just let Richard just make an introduction, and also then I'll just keep on talking about this.
yeah, so I think everyone knows who he is. That's why we are here. And he will take us through his process of how he makes these stories, how he makes these animations, how he makes the choices that he does that elevates the whole process. And please hold your questions till the end. We will have a question and answer session after he has done presenting. And it's now yours. Go ahead.
I'll just make sure if I can share my screen. Yep. Okay. Okay. So, like Rishabh said, I'm going to talk about all this project, but before this, I'm going to introduce myself a bit to the people who don't necessarily know me. I did my design studies at Strat, like some of you guys in the room actually right now. I was there from 2016 to 2021, which makes me quite a young person to come out of this school actually. And yeah, I was majored in transportation design. From professional experiences, I had the time to spend some times at DS Automobile when I was in third year. I then went on to Icona when I was in fourth and fifth year. I actually did my internship in a product design agency. Serge Russac, some of you guys probably know him. He was a speaker at Strat, and he used to come by back and forth. But now he moved to Canada actually. And then in 2022, I joined JC in Milano after Stéphane Janin sent me a message. and peripheral experiences, which is what I qualify as things that will just open my vision about the car design world. I have had the chance to work with Modular, BBI Autosport, and also Oyster Lab and Ultrace in the recent years. And all the time it was different experiences. It was not only for design, but sometimes for visualization, sometimes for art direction, sometimes for video making and all this. So in total, I would say that the past 5 years I've had were really much eyes opening for me in terms of what I could do as a designer, and also what paths I could take, with this degree I got from Strat, actually. And then we fast forward to 2022, and that's when I joined GAC Advanced Design in Milan. One thing I had in mind when I was joining this company in 2022 is that a lot of students that are coming out of school now, they have experiences with 3D, which was not the case back in 2016. I remember some of the older, the last generation at my school when I was there in 2016, like, it would happen that some of them have never touched 3D software before. But in 2022, I think most students who come out of design school have an experience with the 3D software, whether it be Cinema 4D, Blender, Autodesk. For those who are brave enough, they would have touched Alias and other softwares. But I had to keep this in mind, that the market in 2022 was even way more competitive than before, because not only can students deliver sketches and nice renderings, now they can also do 3D. So to me, that was a good thing about these new tools that we had, is that they offer new technology and new possibilities as well for students, because Blender, for example, which is the software I use the most, is completely free, and it has never cost me a single dollar or euro to use it. And yet I've been using it for the past 5 years, and all the things that, even the reason I'm here talking to you now, is kind of why I'm still using the software till this day, and it's mostly thanks to the software, actually. So I'm just going to show you a quick video show reel about the work I've accomplished in the past year. This is just to kind of showcase my work to you guys, and about the process that you're going to see in the presentation I'm going to have. That was a quick. I don't know if you guys heard the sound.
Yeah, we heard. Yeah.
Okay. Sorry if it was too strong as well. The thing is that this whole thing is not very prepared for this. I had to make this presentation in 40 hours. But yeah, the reason why I decided to go so deep into storytelling, and why it's a definitive part of my work, is because to me the object of the car doesn't exist without the context. The reason I'm saying this is that even as a student, when you make Photoshop and you start doing sketches and all this, just the fact that, for example, you're adding reflection in the Photoshop or anything like this shows that you have an idea that the car cannot exist without the space around it. And when I'm saying that the object equals its context, it can be anything. It can be the color palette you choose to use in a rendering. It can be the environment you choose to put your car in, because it will tell a different story depending on where the car is. It can be the characters it has interactions with. It can be the movement of the car. And talking about this, I had this idea of gathering some images of just quickly some of the shots from the past decades that evoke something to me when I look at them, and tells more about the car than just the fact that it's been designed and it exists. Of course, there was this Renault Trésor, the Reventon, and lately the Dune Taxi from BMW, a short movie that came out, and which the video itself will explain the whole purpose of the car. And these are also some things I try to exercise myself in Blender. So these are some personal projects, but I think it's really easy. Just with stuff you download on the internet and a quick composition, you can tell a story, a catchphrase, you know, some environment, but very intentional items that you put in a scene with a car can tell a lot about the car. This is what I usually like to, I mean, this is something we agreed on. The moment I joined GAC, I had this talk with my boss now, Stéphane Janin, and both of us were really agreeing on the fact that design is only 50% of the job. Like Rishabh said earlier, that more than nice sketches and renderings now, people expect, you know, for the student to be able to tell a story and to be able to think about the story that's convincing enough, you know, without being too naive, and be able to visualize it. So this is why I'm always saying that a good story helps perceive a car in its globality, and a good one can sell any car. And for me, this is really important today, because I think there haven't been more students who are trying to get into car design than now. And being able to tell a story is also a differentiating factor for you as a student to be able to bring your design to the next level. Because again, everyone can make nice Photoshops and nice rendering, but not everyone can make a good story. So this brings us to the topic I wanted to talk about, which is the project we did for the Design Week 2024 in April. I think some of you might have the chance to attend this event. And I'm just going to explain a bit how we built the story of the 3 cars we presented from the ground up. And because I know not everyone has seen the video, I'm just going to play it now so that we start from that and people have it in mind when I talk about it. Okay, so this whole project started existing because we had this Stefan selected 3 cars back in January of this year, I think, and we were kind of thinking how to bring these 3 cars together. And I'm going to talk about that in the storyboard part of the story. So before even starting on the process of how we did this whole video, I like to talk about the separation of the shots, in 3 categories. Before even starting to think about storyboarding and all this, we knew from the start that we would have 3 typology of shots. Some that would be design only, which are usually made to showcase the car's feature, like a design feature, like details on the car, and anything that don't really link the car to a particular space or environment. These shots can exist in any type of situation. Like, it's not necessary that it follows the story. Then, yeah, for example, these are some shots that we made, which are very abstract. It gives you some sense of information about where the car is, but it's not the primary feature of the shots, which is just to demonstrate some of the car's feature. Then we have some shots which I call our design plus info shots, which will merge 2 purposes. They will, in one hand, showcase a bit the design of the car and also bring you an information in the same frame. So as you could have seen in the video, there's like this shot of the car driving, and then suddenly the car goes out of frame and you end up with an information on the screen rather than just the shot being descriptive and talking about the car. And even to go all the way into like the details of the shot we're making, this is actually quite funny because Malpensa is the real airport here in Milan, where the offices are. And just to make sure people understood what we were talking about, we also put this little plane in the background, just so that suddenly you have something in your mind that tells you that the car is actually going to end up at an airfield. Same with this kind of shots, which is the side of one of the 3 cars, and it was just a wide medium that zoomed into a detail on the car, but it gives an information as to where the car is going, or it just basically moved forward the story of this car in particular. The last kind of shots, I like to call them info only, which is shots that on the paper have nothing to do with the cars themselves. I've written down in the corner flow of information, action, location, purpose. This kind of shots are anything that will move forward the story. So it doesn't matter if it gives an action, a sense of location, or a purpose. From the 3 shots, for example, I've shown on the screen, you have one where an interaction is happening between 2 characters in the movies, which will kind of give a sense of what's going on. Like, 2 people are meeting, they have a deal, something is going on between 2 characters that drive 2 different cars. So that was a really nice way to link 2 of the cars together already. Then we have this this image where you see the car printed on some Amazon locker type of places, and written in big, freight service, we deliver. This was just to show the purpose of this car, so that unintentionally we would tell people that this car exists because it's a delivery service. So without writing it anywhere, without telling people, just because you have something included in an environment, we just tell a story about the car itself. Then this last one, which is just a highway leading to a city, it shows that one of the car is kind of going towards the city at some point in the story, so something is going to happen there. And yeah, this shots helps only to develop the story and to move forward the whole thing. Now to the storyboard section of the process. So like I said, we had these 3 cars that Stefan selected in January. We had the city pod that was kind of the Milanese quintessential style car. Then the city box, which was targeted towards the young generation and also delivery service people, and the city run, which was the car that was supposed to be used more like IC engines cars today. So passion vehicles, really. You just take it out on the road and drive it for the fun of it. We were really thinking about how to link these 3 cars basically, and how to find a proper story to not make it feel like we had three separate designs and we were forcing people to link them together. But we wanted to create something that was almost obvious from the start. Like, people will see the story and they're like, okay, this is the story and there are 3 cars. I'm not even thinking about the design itself. The goal of the movie that we made in this process was to make sure that the relationship of these 3 cars felt obvious. Basically, we didn't want it to force anything on the people and make it look fake, basically. Because in the end, if the story is good enough, it doesn't matter what you put inside of the story in terms of design, because at the end, the story makes enough sense so that you can interpret it that as being the dominant side of the project. And also, as my boss and other people in the studio also mentioned, because we still talk about this project a lot, we're thinking that this CC3 project was just a good excuse to talk about the nice story, which is what we wanted from the start. Like, we had these 3 cars, we knew we had to make something out of them, but we didn't want it to go toward the sleek and clean visuals that most car companies they have today when they do commercials. We wanted to have something more authentic and genuine, something that would echo to car culture in general, and that people would be able to identify themselves to as well. So we started with this idea of travel between Milan and Guangzhou, which will explain why we have 3 cars in the project. This was actually a nice way to just being able to integrate all 3 of them in the same story, given that each car would serve a purpose at a defined point in the story. So, for example, the Milanese car would be staying in Milan, really helping to sell the idea of the kind of posh Milan place. Then the delivery car would do will fill the gap between Milan and Guangzhou, as it's going to be the one who's going to be traveling and to deliver something to Guangzhou, the 3rd car. And then the 3rd car, which will be the one that speaks also to the Guangzhou youth. We try to bring some of this like more technological feeling as well, because you take China and Italy on the car design spectrum is not really the same type of demand as well. So this is why finally the story of travel between Milan and Guangzhou was good enough for us, so that we could integrate all 3 of them in the same story without it feeling forced. And we started storyboarding actually with Tom Hilton, which is also an interior designer at GAC Milan. We started storyboarding with Tom in January 2024, right after Stefan said that there was going to be 3 cars in this project, basically. And really early off the bat, we started, so before even going to animatics storyboarding or everything like this, we tried to lay down everything on the paper by hand. Because we can iterate very quickly, cross out things, nothing is definitive on the paper version of the storyboard. And we were trying to make the storyboard, trying to take into account everything that I mentioned before, the design shot, the info plus design shot, and the info only shots. So we're trying to balance out already the timeline in our head. Trying to know at which point in the video we'll be showing the cars, at which point in the video we'll be forwarding the story, and at which point in the video we'll be just creating interactions between all these elements. Here you can also see the timeline visualization. We were targeting for a 2 minutes video, because we know that above that it becomes too long and people lose attention, and so we really wanted to tell a compact story in 2 minutes. And the timeline visualization is also something I try to do at the beginning. I mean, once you have a draft of storyboarding, it's really easy already to try to lay out how the video is going to look in the 2 minutes. So we knew that at the middle we would have a split between the Milan and Guangzhou scenery, so we can organize around that. I think here you can also see some of the titles and names and just indications I noted down for myself later. Like here you can see slow 2 cars and fast here. Also in the front track here, Tom. So, and also the separation between the 1st minute and the 2nd one with MI and JZ written here, being the separation between the 2 cities. So this is a really useful tool in the beginning, just to start constructing mentally the timeline for yourself, to be able to kind of have a guide when you start actually building the timeline in Premiere. And after that, when we validated some of the storyboarding intentions. Tom started iterating on Photoshop and After Effects, so he built all the frames. Basically, everything is in grayscale, but at this point of the storyboard is more than enough just to understand where we're going. This is the final version of the Car Culture 3 storyboard that Tom did. So every frame could be used as a reference later when we start to build the actual Blender 3D of all the scenes and how to actually shoot them. But at least every frame contains the information that we're supposed to relay from the shot, like if it's design information, location, character, relationships, and everything. And it will also give the indication about if it's a wide shot, a medium shot, or a close-up shot. So this is a really useful tool that we use all the way until the end, towards end of March 2024. And just to show you guys how close, for example, the final images look like the storyboard. This is a compilation of videos that Tom did.
If you don't get kicked in,
She's a messenger, string 'em up. She's a 10+10, not enough. Mixed messages, wise cross. Marry me, what you got too much. Toothbrush.
So it's really basic, but in the end,
if you don't
it's really basic, but in the end, this serves as tremendous guide, and it allows us to not deviate too far from the original storyboard when we're actually building stuff in 3D and when we're actually shooting. Because one of the problem we also have, if you don't have a clear enough direction in which you're going, when you start building in 3D, you can get distracted because suddenly you have an idea, but maybe it doesn't fit with the rest of the timeline, so you just start adding more and more and more on top of the story, and at the end you have an even harder time to try to put everything together. So this was really helpful to show us what we needed to do and what directions we needed to put our focus on. Yeah, like I said, building the timeline in 2D on paper was also really helpful, because down there, what you see underneath the hand-drawn version of the timeline is the actual timeline we had in Premiere. So this is 2 minutes of the video, and the definitive version started while taking into account the hand-drawn version of the timeline. It was a guide as well to basically all these things that we do beforehand, before even coming to render and building and everything. It serves as directions that we can follow constantly and come back to constantly when we need to reference ourselves to them, and to not also deviate from the stories originally. In the third part of it, I'm going to talk about the more technical aspect of building elements and also shooting in the 3D space. So the software I use is Blender, like you guys know, and there's a lot of resources around Blender to be able to tell a story. Some of the early tips I got from VFX friends that work in the industry really early on, when I started doing these 3D scenes and everything in Blender, was that if an asset already exists, don't build it. And if it's outside the camera view, don't even bother constructing outside of it. In the sense that if you respect already these two key ideas, first of all, it will make your workflow much more faster, and it will also help you be focused around what you need to actually build, and not spend useless time on building stuff that you won't even see at the end in the camera. And for this, I think most of you guys are already familiar, but for those who don't know, a lot of the stuff I use in the scenes I build comes from either Quixel, Sketchfab, or Blender Kit. And so a lot of things are already free on them, but if you use free things, you have to make sure to give credit, like I think it's CC0 licenses, which is just mentioning the creator. But also because for this project, as it was in the context of a company, we had a certain budget to allow to the creation of assets and also creations of scenes and everything. So it wasn't even a problem. to actually buy some stuff from internet if we needed to. This is what I was talking about, like just some demonstration about how to actually build a proper like scene that's usable in Blender. On the right side, you see the camera view. So for me in the viewport, everything that was outside of this orange triangle, I wouldn't even bother with constructing around or even building things. You know, if for example, sometimes the things that I see most people doing when they start building 3D scenes and trying to tell a story around their object is that they will suddenly build the whole environment in 360 degrees, which ends up with very heavy files that you cannot operate necessarily if you're on a smaller computer. But it also makes you spend time on the wrong things, because sometimes you might be building your environment like just instinctively, but then you put a camera in it and you try to find a nice angle to actually be able to shoot the object, and you cannot because you have things that are in the background that you don't want to see, things in the foreground or middle ground which is not lit enough. So I always try to start from a camera angle. That's the way I work, and that's like mostly what VFX people do as well. They always start building from the camera, and everything that's outside they don't care about. They don't care about it being built or not. But yeah, at least if they start from the camera, they can focus their energy on the task at hand that are really important to the shots. And this is the same shot from top view. So as you can see here, anything that's outside of the camera angle, it wasn't really important for the building of this scene. Same for this shot here of the three-wheeler. This is even simpler. Like the only thing that actually matters in this shot was, like I told you, give information about where the car is going, and because it was an airport, also make sure that you have some elements that will create this link in people's mind that the car is going to an airport. So of course we know that not everyone knows that the airport here is called Malpensa, so we put this plane in the background as well. If you look at this scene, is even this scene is even simpler than the other one. We just had this backgrounds with some buildings floating around. This fog plane in the middle trying to mimic the depths of field of the camera, and just this road floating in the middle. And there's absolutely nothing else outside of it. And the whole scene containing the car was like 900, yeah, even lower than a million polygons in the scene, which is to construct something like this is really low on computer usage as well. And a lot of people will then ask me about file management. This is something I've came across a lot as well. So there's our 3 columns. You can see that on one side we have every shots that are linked to Tom. On the second shot, on the second column, everything that's linked to Axel, and on the third column, everything that's linked to Vale, which are the name of the 3 designers who made the 3 cars. The way I manage all the scenes is that, like I told you, I build every scene from the camera angle. So what happens if I'm shooting multiple clips in the same thing, in the same scene? I will just duplicate the scene and keep 1 scene per camera angle, which allows me to make sure that there's only 1 camera movement, 1 animation in one file, which is also helpful when you work in a company, because you're not necessarily the only one who's going to open the files and work on them. Sometimes I have other people in the studio just opening the file and rendering for me some things. So I need them to be able to tell one file from another really quickly, which shot is in which folder, which shot is in which file, and everything. So this is why, for example, you can see the Tom Rig Malpensa file existing 4 times, because we had 4 angles of shooting for this specific setting. So the thing we did is just that we copied the file 4 times, and in each file we had only 1 camera rendering 1 movement, and the car doing 1 action. In this situation, it helps being organized, and also like the way you name it is just instantly recognizable. and so that you don't have to have 25 cameras in one single file, and try to manage which collection you need to see, what you need to deactivate before rendering. It saves a lot of time when you come to rendering, because you don't have to deal with everything else. Or sometimes people render the whole night. They wake up and they see they forgot a collection in the file, so they have to re-render the whole thing. This at least helps us avoiding that. And then about composition, this is the second part of the building shooting. We're now in the shooting part of this sub part. I would say that composition wise, really the only thing you can do to help yourself create an eye for proper composition in shots like this is movies, music videos, and everything that have people who actually did this job for 20 years and plus, and they just make movies and all this. And why not just take them as references? I personally use this website called Shot Deck, which is a website that gives you frames of movies. What I like about this website is that it has every information you can need from a shot like this. For example, this shot is written desaturated. I have the time of the day. I have the aspect ratio, the format, composition, lighting. So in and of itself, when you study shots from movies, it already gives you a lot of information. Shot Deck is a subscription-based services that I pay myself. I think I've been using it for like 4 years now. But there are free alternatives, like I've written on the side. You have less information as on Shot Deck, but still it helps to build an eye, for good composition and good lighting and all of this. Some of the rule I personally like to use are surds and centers. Of course, there are a lot more composition guides than this, but these are the more useful one, I feel like, for anything car-related videos. Surds, for example, for me, it helps create relationships. Center really helps to emphasize the subjects in the middle of the frame. So surds, for example, are good for any shots that will carry information, and center would be good for anything where you want to show features of the car. And this is the same guides, for example, applied on something on some of the shots we have in the video. So you can see that the center one is really only here to show the silhouette of the car, whereas the one that's built on surds is actually bringing some information about the destination of the car. When it comes down to lighting a scene, for example, I like to tell people to not limit themselves to logical lighting or physical lighting, because anyway, on the movie set, everything is artificially created, replicated, or enhanced, in a sense that no light that you see on screen is actually just as it is in the state as it is. Everything is like created, replicated, enhanced. Because one of the biggest mistakes I see people doing, for example, on the left screen, you see people will start building an environment with proper lighting, dedicated lighting, and then they will try to render the car, for example, in that environment, and suddenly they realize that it lacks light and you can't see anything, even though the lighting is respected, because everything is actually coming from a physical light source in the scene. But then if you want to really emphasize on the scene and put stuff to a certain foreground of information, I usually do not hesitate to put more lights in the scene, even though they don't have like physical sources, because it just helps telling the more compelling story, bringing some objects, some features forward, and it creates hierarchy in the shots, basically. So yeah, like I was saying, the light is a tool that you shouldn't be scared to use. Even if it doesn't make sense that something is lighting the car from the top in a container shipyard, it doesn't matter, because it helps bringing the car forward in the story. And as long as it doesn't look too much out of hand, the lighting, if it's if it's coherent enough in terms of color or strength, for example, with other lighting in the scene, usually no one will actually look at it. But yeah, you look at the left screen and you see that all these 4 lights, they have no physical sources that will actually justify them being there. But still, if I didn't render with them, you wouldn't be able to see the car, and it wouldn't pop out this much in the final shot. So yeah, that's what I usually tell people, that lights is a tool and that you shouldn't be scared to use them. And finally, in the edit process, today there are 2 softwares, I think, that are really, I think, the backbones of people like me just doing videos on the side and sometimes for work, is Premiere and DaVinci. I think Premiere comes with a subscription-based service. DaVinci is free. At least they have a free version. And so these are the 2 main things, and I'm just going to go through. Basically, the way they are built are pretty much the same. So I'm just going to go through it with the knowledge I have on Premiere. So like I told you guys, the composition and the timeline of the movie is already determined. Like when we start thinking about storyboarding, we have a global idea of how the movie is going to look like when it's going to be on the timeline. One of the most important guide I have when I'm making videos, whether it be for companies or for myself, is rhythm. Especially on a 2 minutes video, if there's no rhythm and there's no contrast or variations, people can get bored. And if people get bored and leave the video, then basically it didn't do your job well enough. So to me, it has a lot to do with music, for example. Music is what will mainly guide the video. So your music choice can impact the video, and you can have kind of the music influence the type of shots that you want to make. You can make the shots contrast between themselves and also contrast with the music. One of my favorite way of creating rhythm in the video is having like shots where the object is actually in movement. Some others where the car is still. So when you go from one to another, it creates this this break in the mind of the viewer. That's nothing is just a continuous 2 minutes video with everything to the same level and same tone. So this is, to me, the most common way I create contrast in my videos. I also have this video of the Celica Roadhogger project that I did to showcase a bit how you can create contrast by selection of music as well, complementing the movement and stillness shots.
No one knows what it means, but it's provocative. It gets the people going.
So yeah, in the end, to finish the part of the music and variations of shots, like at the beginning, for example, if you guys just remember, I had this very slow motion shot contrasted with a very fast BPM music. It's also a way to create this this imbalance in the mind of the viewer. Like that thing is going really slow, but at the same time, the music is going fast. It creates interest for the people who are looking at the video. And then suddenly you have all the shots graded in black and white, and the still shots which are graded in color. It also creates another level of contrast in the mind of the viewer. And at the same time, when you go from the track shots to the still shots in the warehouse, suddenly the music also changes. So the more level of contrast variations you can create, the more it makes the video interesting for people to actually look at, and they won't get bored, like for example after 10 seconds of something going on. And coming to grading, some people will ask me what's like the secret sauce for grading and all this, but like there's no secret sauce to grading. Basically, like I already said, for composition, the only thing you can do is to train your eyes watching movies and understand what you like and why you like it. So for same as for composition, I will tell you that shot deck is really helpful for this, because you get all the frames in high resolution, and you can also just take them as references and build off from that. But in reality, yeah, there's like grading will be an important part of the story still, because, for example, this is some work I did for Austin Lab, and with the same picture from the left graded 3 times on the right, they all tell a kind of different stories, you know, going from this kind of vintage looking black and white picture to a warmer one to a colder one. So it depends on how you grade them. You will be able to tell a different story. Regarding SFX, for example, we in the office have a subscription to Artlist, but before that, when I was a student, what I used to do is I used to just scout YouTube for sounds like car exhaust sounds. There's a lot of things actually on YouTube that you can use. The reason also why SFX is this important for me is because if you have nothing going on in the scene, for example, the car is static and there's no sounds around it except the music, it can feel fake to a certain degree, in the sense that if your car is in a warehouse and the music is being played, it should at least have echo, or you could hear like the buzzing of the neon lights on top, which are really subtle things that adds to the level of reality that people can hear and be like, oh yeah, understand. Like they have this link in their mind that neon buzzing sound must mean that the neon lights exist in the scene, even if you have nothing like that in the scene, but it just adds other layers of reality to your projects. And yeah, basically, if you have the means for it, any platform like Artlist or Motion Array are really helpful, because you don't have to scout YouTube for indefinite time periods. But if you can, YouTube is still very, very complete in terms of SFX and what you can find there. And also as a bonus, I wanted to add these few graphics that the designers and our team actually made as well, because they are part of the story. We tackled this one thing about, like, for example, how to build a video story around the car. But there are a lot more going on around them than just the video. For example, everything graphical that we create for the events just completes the projects, for example, and they help to extend further the story around the car. Like, for example, this illustration of the 3 characters, which would have been the 3 pilots of the car that Tom did for the project, is also helping to create more lore basically around the project, and nothing ends just at the design of the 3 cars. Yeah, these were the ones for the rider, and yeah, just playing with the graphic, for example, the car in the noodle cups, help also show that this is not like corporate advertising. We just did this for fun, and it helps pushing the story further. And on top of that, we also have this kind of jokes that are being made in our studio, which are really just us trying to prank people around in the car industry. So we have all these fake Hot Wheels. Unfortunately, we know a lot of people were asking us if they could buy the Hot Wheels. Unfortunately, they don't exist. But yeah, a lot of the things that we create are just there to support the story. It doesn't matter if they are integrated in the proper part of the communication of the story. We do them as a support, because there's always some website where you will find them and all this, and it makes people question, so it gets their interest. And so these are, for us, just like bonus material that we make all the time, that we have something to present. And also, like I said, design is only 50% of the job, and after that you need to actually sell the cars. So yeah, this is just a slide to show you like all the people that were involved in the building of this story. Like you cannot make all this by yourself in the scope of time that we had. Of course, if you dedicate yourself like a year and something like this, but we had 2 months. We needed to deliver everything, so everyone understands the importance of telling the story around the car. So I would just like to mention also the people who worked on it, so that it doesn't feel like all this is something done by one people. You know, it's okay to work on projects with other people, which was something I did a lot as well when I was a student. I used to work a lot with other friends and all this, who would come up with projects in common. But yeah, thank you everyone for listening to me, and now I'll be open to answer some questions. Also, Rishav, Arthur, and all these people, if you have questions about parts maybe that I went through a bit too quickly, because I've been doing this for a lot, so I don't even know if you want me to spend more time.
This was, I think, one of the best sessions I've had. And I know it takes a lot of time to curate all of this information, and I really thank you for doing that, because it was such a detailed presentation right from the beginning to the end. And I liked how you talked about the overall storytelling, which is not just bound to the screen. It goes beyond that. When you, after you guys have the model, you guys have all these jokes you guys make. And yeah, you covered a lot of important things. I didn't know that people sketch keyframes too. I didn't know that. And it was awesome to see that how you guys meticulously plan the whole thing without wasting too much time, because in the beginning, like, I'm still trying to learn Blender for animations, but in the beginning when I started doing these frames, I, like you said, I started building the whole thing because I didn't know what shots I'm going to take. So I think planning really helps a lot to concise your file, concise your time. And the questions, I think I'll start with the questions like you said, you guys had 2 months to do everything. Is it including design? And yeah, go ahead.
So the way we do this, for example, the way our studio works is that sometimes we have more work than other times, of course, like in any places. Stefan is really good with us in the sense that sometimes he will just let us work on personal projects, because it helps exploring different creativity and all this. So we knew we had Car Culture 3 coming up for April 2024. And Steph just left the idea. He said, guys, for CC3, we would like to make city cars. So he just left the idea on the table. At some point around December, he'll start gathering ideas from the guys. So if you had the time to work on it, fair enough. If you didn't, it's fine as well. It's just because it's, anyway, these projects are bonuses from us to the design community. So at December, Stefan will start gathering ideas, who would choose some direction to go. Of course, sometimes you can merge proposal. You can decide, maybe some guy who did the exterior will end up doing the interior. Maybe some guy who did the exterior will end up doing the interior, which is what happened on this project. Everything is very flexible. Like I said, Tom, the guy who also did the storyboard with me, is an interior designer, but he ended up doing the exterior of the three-wheeler. So everything is very flexible. Everyone has like double or triple roles in the studio. Like I told you, our 3D modelers, they can also do Blender, so they know how to set up cameras, set up animations, and all this. For example, me, I'm an exterior designer, but I also take care of the whole artistic direction of the studio. Tom is an interior designer, but he's also a scenographer, and he can also create all this storyboards for everything. But from the moment Stefan chose the 3 cars all the way to the release of the project, because before releasing it to the public, we also need to release it to our headquarters in China to validate everything with them. So I would say on mid-March, the project was done, basically. And then we had 1 month to create these stickers and graphics to make sure that the presentation was going to be nice, down to even what type of objects we use as a stand for the car during the design week. Because for the people who came by, for example, you know that we used the shipping boxes in which the car came in. And that was part of the storytelling itself as well, because we're like, it's a story about traveling. We're going to keep the shipping boxes and put the car on top of them. And so there was a lot of things like this that were part of global storytelling.
Yeah, that's awesome. So I think this, so you're saying that this, the whole planning of storytelling was always a part of the project, was nothing that
Yeah.
happened later on, like, oh, it would be nice to have a video, oh, it would be nice to have a sticker. So it was
Yes.
always a plan, you mean?
Yeah.
And
So because of course Stefan had this idea that he wanted to make sure that every year Design Week for us is the moment where we can express ourselves as a studio, not as part of the company. So he was like, yeah, we knew from basically the previous Design Week that we were going to have a video, that we were going to have stickers, that we were going to have all these things that are linked to the project, not being the design itself. So yeah, all of this stuff that we needed to create, basically we already knew that we will have to do it.
awesome. I think Art has some question. Go ahead, Art.
Yeah. First of all, thanks for the run, Edward. It's super cool. Me and Risha were talking on the background, like that,
Yeah.
like how much detail you guys put on the scenes, and that actually it helps like putting us inside of the story and within. And on that note, and touching back on the storytelling, you show that you guys use like a storyboard, which is also cool to see it. Like it's very detailed, and the plan is it's larger than we thought. But I also noticed that you make a cool blend of like expected shots, like expected camera angles that describes the car or the products pretty well, but also very unconventional camera placements. And that for me, it's also a big part of your style of storytelling. Can you talk a bit more about that?
Yeah, so thanks a lot for the compliment first, Arthur. I'll make sure to pass it on to the guys as well in the studio, because I think everyone's knowing I'm having this talk with you guys right now. So about this, like towards the end of my presentation, when I was talking about contrast and variations, is also something that I like doing. For example, like Arthur said, sometimes you have conventional shots, but shots in unconventional ways. Is also a way to break up like people's expectation in the video. Basically, editing the video is constantly a fight, just trying to break off people's expectation. Like some people expect like fast shots when the drop of the music is coming. Maybe just as a videographer, what you want to give people is maybe some really still shots, or even a break to a classic music when the drop is coming, and then suddenly you break off everyone's expectation. But then again, so you benefit from the anticipation that was building on the expectation, and suddenly at the expectation moment, nothing is what people would have expected. So yeah, I like this way of thinking. Basically, is to be able to still, because in the end we're still selling a product. You know, even if it's even if we had fun and all this, we're still trying to make people be aware of what we do here. So in the end, we still need to show the three cars, the design, and all this. But to me, the way I come up with some of the shots is just that: how do you describe the car without making people feel like you're describing the car?
Yeah.
So that the information that you bring, more than just this is the car, this is the 3/4 front, you know, get with it. And then, because that's the thing as well. One thing I noticed, it comes to everyone. You make a project, you're really proud of it, you know, so you want to show people everything about the car. You want to have like a 10-second shot on the wheel hub. You want to have a 10-second shot on the HMI inside the car. But most of the time, people who are watching your video, they care more about movements, what interaction you have. You know, if you want to display HMI, maybe make sure to have an interaction with it, you know, on the screen. Maybe have something that's moving on the screen already. Tell a joke, put the Netflix logo, you know, put the hand that's interacting with the board and everything. Especially when you do shots where you're showcasing your car, you need to make sure that it doesn't feel like you're forcing people to look at something.
Yep.
And that's the most important part of why we try to break off the expectations, because then suddenly people look at them in a new way. It's not like, oh, okay, like it's like they're looking at the 3/4 back, but they don't realize they're looking at the 3/4 back of the car. They're looking at it, they're like, oh yeah, the information they get, instead of being like, I'm looking at the car, is the car is driving on the highway and it's getting to the airport. So they've seen the back of the car, but they also got more information out of it, rather than just being confronted to a 3/4 still of the car.
I think it also is super important to highlight, and you guys did really well. Like every time, it's something that you can tell the rest of the guys at the studio as well, to your team. It's like we always wait for what you guys have for next year, because it's always super entertaining, right?
Yeah.
And that's a big part of what you guys do, and the way you choose, like that's why I decided to touch on the camera placement, because for me it's not that it's super unconventional, but it's kind of nice. It helps describe the product and in a very effective way, but also very entertaining. But like for me, what strikes the most when you place the cameras in weird spots, I would say weird because it's unconventional, because a camera will never be able to be placed in that physical camera, never be able to be placed on that spot. And I think you use that in your advantage, like using the fact that you're doing this in a virtual, in a 3D environment and not in real environment, and you're being creative with that. I think that helps sell the character of the product, not only like the visual, like you can describe the surface pretty well with a still or with a shot in the studio, but the way you guys decide to do it goes beyond. It sells the character of the vehicle, which for me is much more important than just selling the surfaces, right? Like just selling what the technology is behind. I think that for me, yeah, and that's a congratulations to all of you guys. Like the way you guys think is always super refreshing for all of us.
Thanks a lot, Sarsha. Yeah, about the fact that we were, so we had this talk in January with the whole team, talking about if we should go, like include some more conventional shots in the video, like the studio shots and all this. But in the end, giving that, I mean, Stefan and Jan, who are both my boss in the studio, they're also big movie fans, and they agreed to go to this direction, to not treat it as a car commercial, basically, because that's kind of the feeling you have when you make a car video, or like students trying to showcase their work, is that in the end it starts feeling like a commercial. Like, look at how good the surface is, look at how good the lighting feels on this reflection and all this. But in the end, that's like kind of not what really people are interested in. This is why we try to come up with this story, because it doesn't matter what the design looks like in the end if it serves the story.
Yeah, 100%. I totally agree.
So yeah, that was the thing, is that if the story is compelling enough, doesn't matter, the design doesn't actually matter that much, because as long as it supports the story, then people are just going to be like, yeah, there were 3 cars and the cool story, that's it. It's not like I've looked at a 2 minutes car commercial, that was it.
Yeah, again, congratulations, man. Yeah, love what you guys did.
Thanks a lot, Arthur.
I have a follow-up question. Sorry, everyone who is in the queue. I wanted to ask if, like, how much, like you said, like, someone can get emotional with the shots, like, I want 10 seconds of this part, this part. How do you guys decide, who decides in your team? Is it Stefan, or is it like a whole team decides together what should be done, what should not be done? What's the decision-making process for you guys?
For example, like Steph, when he came to us in January, looking at Tom and myself making the storyboard, he was like, he basically gave us free reins on the whole thing. He was like, come up with something, I'm free, I'm open to listen to all proposals that you have, but just make sure that we still have some basic shots of like 3/4 front of the car, side and rear of each car. Basically, that was the requirement he had. And because we had like 3 cars, that would have been 9 mandatory shots. But again, with them, we try to think about them in ways that like the side view of the racer wouldn't just feel like it's a side view in a studio. We put people around, we made the car open at the same time, so that it actually showcases something, instead of just being a car in a studio. It felt like it was, for example, just a car on in the car meet video, for example, where someone would be shooting it from afar. So again, with this kind of things, like Arthur mentioned, we have this feeling, because we're in 3D space. We sometimes place this camera in unrealistic positions, placements, to create this thing in people's mind that, oh wait, how do they film it? And then to anchor the car more in reality, we also try to film it from actual eye height positions. So this make the whole mix of everything together, I think, is what creates this balance of, like, at the same time I feel like it's cool enough, and then it uses new thing, but at the same time I can see the car enough. So I would say Stefan just expected at the beginning to have like at least good descriptive shots of each car. And then we came up with examples, and this is why we also sketched out the storyboard with them in the beginning, because we wanted to make sure to see with Stefan at what point do we integrate them, and how do we make them feel like we're not looking at the descriptive shots for the cars, basically.
Awesome. All right. Okay, I'm done. Chaco, you want to go ahead?
Cool, man. It was super cool to like see, we all follow all the work from you guys, right? And I think, just knowing that 2-minute video that we saw and the amount of like storytelling that you guys did, it was super cool to like see how much thought and how much planning went into it. I think it was awesome, dude. Like, I think like what I saw is like that focus on storytelling really drove efficiency to your design work too, right? Instead of going off on tangents, designing every nook and corner to like the nth degree, you can focus on exactly what you see. Now, I think my question would be like, how did you guys go through multiple storylines before like deciding, okay, we're going to start design, or did you just like, did both of the design and the story evolve together?
So again, thanks for the compliments. I think all the guys are going to appreciate it tomorrow. We did went through multiple storylines in the beginning, but all of them were focused towards this story about travel that we wanted to tell, because for us it was really obvious that we had one car that was made for Italy, one car that was made for China, and one car that was like kind of a delivery. So originally we had different stories where maybe all three of the car would go into Milan, and maybe all of them join to another car meet at Guangzhou in the end. But finally, the reason why we decided to kind of have this linear story about one car, then the second one, then the third one, is that it creates structure. It also creates anticipation. For example, if we tell people that there's going to be 3 cars in the video, and you don't show the last one until you're 1 minute and 20 seconds in, there's somehow a kind of anticipation. And we take this into account as well when we're building like the video. We don't show all the cars directly. It's like before even going to the descriptive shots, we show them in context. We show them maybe when they're like 20%, really small on the screen and all this, just to build anticipation and just to tell people that something else is coming. So we did went through multiple storylines, but in the end, we just retained the one that was, first of all, the easiest to do in the time period we had, because 2 months was really short and we had to plan a lot of this. Also render time, because we rendered everything internally, so all the computers were working all the time every night for 2 months.
Crazy.
And in the end, we went for the easiest and the most comprehensible one as well, because we said that the story was already so full of Easter eggs, basically, that we needed some structure, some linear structure for the people to actually understand it from the first look, basically.
Nice. Dude, I think like you guys really hit the nail, like really, hats off.
Thanks a lot.
Awesome, man. Thanks a lot, dude.
Right. Tapish, you have a question?
Hello, Edouard, sir. First of all, I would really like to appreciate you guys for conducting the session. Now, my question is like, I just wanted to take you back to the part where you described how traveling between Milan and Guangzhou was selected to establish the relationship between all the 3 vehicles. So what I wanted to know is like what other options were there on the table while you were deciding on this specific set, and what other ideas were there which you guys rejected, and why this specific idea was selected just for the establishing the relationship part. The main idea
Okay.
behind this is I just wanted to know that how ideas are being selected and rejected at the topmost level in a design studio. How you guys selected? How do you guys select a story? That's what I wanted to know.
Well, thanks a lot again. And well, to come down to why we selected certain ideas over others, like I told to Chaco, was basically we have this. So like I showed you guys the storyboard, we did it in multiple steps. Like originally we had just hand-drawn storyboards. Then we had this animatic storyboards, and then at the end, which is a final one, I haven't showed you guys because I didn't have the time to compile everything, but we had the keyframe storyboards where we would just put like the cars in environments that we would build quickly with quick cell stuff and also sketchfab stuff, but just to give us an idea of how they would behave each other next to each other, and what kind of interaction we can create between them. So, for example, why we went for the story of the car going from Milan, then the delivery car, then Guangzhou in China, is because when we think about the storyboard, so the idea of the travel that we already mentioned that we wanted to keep because it was in the end the one that spoke the most, why we would have two cars from two different continents in the same video. We also make basically an exhaustive list of props that we have in the design and that we can use as well. So it came along nicely that in the Italian car, the car that was the City Pod, the one that was supposed to be in Milan, the Gero, which was the interior designer on the car, made a set of luggage and bag in the car. So it came helpful to the story that we could use this bag, this luggage as an element that will have to travel between Milan and Guangzhou, so that became the whole thing, and it was kind of an excuse basically to film the travel of the bag and to tell a bigger story than just the bag itself. Because yeah, if we take it to the bottom line, the whole 2-minute story is about a bag that's traveling from Milan to Guangzhou, basically.
Got it. Got it. Thank you very much. Thank you.
No problem.
Yes, go ahead.
Hi. First of all, I just want to tell you that I have been practicing visualization for some time, and your work has been really inspiring for me, and it's inspiration the amount of quality that can be achieved with Blender. It amazed me a lot. So thank you for that. And my question was, so if you're setting up a scene, so you have your main character in a scene, and it's according to the rule of third, and then you start adding the assets according around the scene that supports the main character and the storyline. So how, even if you add something in the foreground to, add depth to the scene, even you have certain material in the background. So how do you strike a balance between adding enough asset that conveys the story or highlights the main character, and at the same time, the main idea or theme behind the scene is to showcase the actual design of the car. So how do you strike that balance? Because it always confuses me a lot that how much asset should I add, and is it enough or not to convey the story?
So for this, I'm just going back to the presentation to talk about maybe this shot. So on the right side of the screen, you kind of see the car in the middle of the frame. The way we would compose shots like this is to either make sure the car is detached from the foreground or from the background. This is why we put a sunlight that strong on the building in the back, so that you could kind of still read the silhouette of the car. I would say when you shoot a car like this and you wonder if you've achieved enough level of assets and things you put in the scene to make sure that it looks real and convincing, I would say first of all, you need to make sure if the shot you're building, is it trying to tell more about the story of the car, or is it trying to describe the car? For example, if you have a shot that's going to describe this car, maybe instead of having all the tables and the planes in the background and all this, I would just have made a 3/4 front of the car in front of the warehouse without maybe 1 or 2 boxes on the side, just to help understand that this is a delivery car. This is why I would put like boxes next to the car. But for me, everything comes down to these choices you have to make first. If it's going to tell a story about it, then don't worry too much about if you can see the car good enough. As long as it's in there, you always have other shots where you can tell about the design and the features of the car. But if it's a shot where you're supposed to describe basically the car, then maybe make sure that you focus a bit more on the car itself. If we're going to shots like this one, for example. The lighting here on this shot really helped. Basically, it put everything outside of the car in the dark, even though you can still recognize silhouettes and humans and everything like this. But the thing that comes to your eyes first is the car. So it depends on your intention. And once your intention is clear and you've made a choice, it becomes much more easier to decide on whether there's enough assets or whether have you light the car enough and everything like this. It goes along it basically.
Okay, thanks so much.
No problem.
Right. Aditya?
Hey guys, Eduardo, it's absolute madness what you guys have done, and I'm gonna ask the question that I think everyone wants to ask, which is, are you sure you don't have clones of yourself doing the work together? Because it's obscene, man. 2 months to do what you guys did it's kind of ridiculous, and it's changed things. Like there was a time when car studios used to be pretty proud to be able to do a digital launch in 6 months, and they'd be like, man, we did a whole car in 6 months.
Yeah.
You guys have 3 cars and an animation and a video and a storyboard in 2. So it's pretty shocking and super inspiring. So yeah, thanks again for the time that you've spent with us today. It's been amazing.
Yeah, no problem. It was a pleasure talking to every one of you anyways.
Cheers, man.
Right. Advait?
Yeah, hello guys, first of all. But
Hi.
for me, I really get the idea of the storytelling and all, how important it is. But my question is a bit different, because at least for me, what I observed these days is like I was kind of getting this feeling that the exploration line or the exploration stage of this whole project is getting less and less important, because I don't see a lot of slides dedicated for the exploration where you really are sitting and trying to find the key sketch or the find the core idea of the concept. And also a lot of projects showcasing in the portfolio, I don't see this a lot, because the trend I see is that they almost kind of directly jump right into the core idea with a key sketch or something, instead of showcasing how they reach there. So I think it's same as important as the core idea, that to show that how you reach to that certain point. So my question is that really necessary these days, or is it for the aim of making the whole project really concise that you guys are doing that, or is it just my observation? Yeah, that's it. Thanks a lot.
Thanks for the question. So yeah, I would say, so today I personally didn't show you a lot about how we got to these ideas, because the focus was on storytelling, and I really wanted to keep like this time to talk about all the details and everything that went behind the building of the story. But I would say it's not less important than before, but unless you really have a striking, authentic inspiration that helps you build a car or design a car, I would say that it's less important than how you will sell it. At least for me, regarding myself, I would say that the inspiration for the car, usually sometimes we don't even have one. It's just like we put lines on paper and they matches and we're like, this is a cool story, but there's nothing more to sell than that. And unfortunately, I think for most of the people today, if you don't have a solid way of justifying why a car exists, just don't talk about it, because it will just get people mad and people will start thinking about it like, yeah, it's just another car in the market and all this. So it depends on really how you can sell it, like with the stories and everything, you know, that you create around it, not at the inception of the project. But yeah, actually for us, the three cars, they had strong roots in Italian history. Actually, the three-wheeler was inspired by the Piaggio, which was the Italian three-wheeler delivery car back in the 60s and 70s. And the City Pod, which is the Milanese car, was actually inspired by the Isetta, the BMW Isetta, you know, the small boxy one. And even though they had this strong inspiration at their genesis, at their inception, we just mentioned them as anecdotes more than making a whole story about it, because in the end, like I'm telling you, the anecdotes is like two phrases. It's like, yeah, we were inspired by the Piaggio or by the Isetta, and that's basically it. Anything else, anything that will justify your process of doing something a certain way rather than another another one in the design process, because of how subjective it is, you cannot really explain it to someone else, you know, and hoping for it to make sense to someone else. It's already so diverse, and we have already so many subjective opinion in the design field itself that I think it's going to be hard to make an argument for it to sell a design.
Yeah, I think that really answered my question. So yeah, as I told, like whatever we do on the work table and the amount of thing we decide to actually showcase is, striking that balance. That's
Yeah.
what I struggle, at least me personally. So yeah, your words really helped me, I guess. No, I really get an idea now. Yeah, thanks a lot.
Yeah, I would say that striking a balance really comes down to what you really want to show and what you don't. You know, I think that's part of like we all have this common sense of knowing inside of us what's going to really matter to people. Even if we do things, for example, like I was saying, you design a car, so of course you love your design and you want to showcase it to anyone, but deep down you probably know that people won't spend 15 seconds in front of the screen looking at the front fender that you did. Like, if we stop lying to ourselves, we know it. But so how do you do to make people look at it still in a different way? You create a story around it. You create reflections. Maybe a reflection of a character in the fender will make someone look at the fender in a different way than just looking at it in the white studio. So for me, it is just part of still presenting your work, but presenting it in a more interesting manner for the viewers. You know, considering outside of the scope of just I designed the car. I don't really have a justification for it, but look at it. You know, so that's just an evolution of how you present your work today, I would say.
Yeah, thanks a lot. I get the idea now. Yeah.
No problem.
Yeah, I think adding to what Edouard said, the timelines of the companies have also become very short. Like even at, like he said, he had 2 months to do everything, and even at Canoe, sometimes we have 3 weeks to design and engineer a whole interior. So we don't really have time to do a lot of exploration and a lot of things. And also nowadays, people who are looking at portfolios, they are so oversaturated by looking at so many things available on Instagram and Behance, and if you see overall, everything looks the same if you zoom out. But then you need to have some kind of spice to what you're showing, which I think what he explained about the shadow of a person, or some kind of palm tree in a background, or something that evokes some emotion while you see something, that I think is more important nowadays than worrying about 2 mm of volume not being proper. So yeah,
Agreed. But this is also exactly how we work in our studio. Like, I would say, yeah, probably Chinese companies are really they have high expectations, you know, when it comes to people working for them, and because of, like I told you early in the presentation, every student basically that come out of school today, they have touched 3D software at some point. it becomes also the standards for the companies who are hiring you. You know, they expect you to be able to provide more than just sketches or genesis ideas or inception ideas for a project. They expect you to be able to carry it all the way to visualization and being able to showcase the car on the street. For example, if you're able to do that in 3D, that's like for the company, it's perfect. And yeah, sometimes between the brief of the company, they will give us a brief on the Friday afternoon and then tell us that the first round is due in 2 weeks. So you really have 2 weeks of having to come up with something. Then because it's not only about designing it, because there's a review, you also need to put up a way of presenting it, you know, because if you come up with your sketches or 3D on the screen and just like everything is viewport grayscale, people are not going to find it convincing, and so you would have lost the project because you didn't spend time presenting it well enough. So I would say presentation wise, this is what I was saying, like design is only 50% of the job, because if you cannot present it properly, then it's going to be hard to go through any of it at any point.
All right. Anurag, you have a question?
Yeah, I just wanted to add to what you what two guys were talking about. I think to the portfolio, and I make the observer part of the scene. The one of the easiest tricks you do is what you can see on the screen right here, putting like foreground, because that immediately brings you into the scene. And the moment you're into the scene, the observer or the whatever the other person, like whatever whoever you want to touch is in the scene, you already sold that thing 50%. So it's already committed, because it feels that it's part of the world, it's part of the scene. That's why like there's a lot of like foregrounds play in movies, and to bring you inside of the movie or inside of that shot. So I think that's why I always like to touch the camera placements, because for me it's the huge, like it's probably like the largest part of storytelling. It's bringing the observer or the spectator into the scene, and that's what you guys do graciously in every shot.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Yeah, I think that's definitely part of the, like what you said, like this is why, for example, even on this really basic shot that we have of the 3/4 front of the car, we have two silhouettes in black, because it was an easy way for us to create this contrast and also create this night bokeh blur, so that we could help the observer place himself in the space of the shot. Like he knows he's in the crowd looking at the car between other people. So it gives also the observer this capacity, like the shots itself gives information to the viewer about where he's at in the scene. And that's really powerful when you can already bring people in there so they can kind of feel closer to the action of what's happening on the screen than just like if I didn't put the silhouettes of the two person in the front, it's just a really flat it's a really flat shot where you cannot really tell where you are if you're alone. It doesn't give you any information about who you are as a spectator, you know.
Yeah, that's pretty smart. Yeah, that's what I like about all the shots you guys have, and they're all beautiful. If you can get any still for the whole video, it's gonna be a super interesting image you can have on your background. That's something that we touch in another chai per chacha, that we say like if the image is not good enough to deserve to be hanged on your wall, don't show it. Don't put it on the video. Don't make a steal out of the thing. So like every single second, every single frame matters, and that's what you guys. I can see the attention to that on your videos and all of your shots.
Yeah, exactly. But you're talking about some point I haven't mentioned in the presentation, but it's true. I think there's not a single shot in the video that I don't know exists or I'm not aware of, simply for the reason because all of them is like at least 1 hour of placement, you know, trying to find the correct angle, what you should see in the whole movement of the camera, because once you place it, that's one thing, but when the camera moves, you also, you know, there's point A and point B of the camera. What happens in between? You know, what do you see coming from left to right? What's leaving the screen? What suddenly to discover? And like you said, if the shot is not good enough to be worth being hanged on the wall, then it doesn't have a place in the movie as well. This is where we try to curate every single shot, and I think we spent so many times on it and reviewed so many of them. Just this single shot that you're seeing actually right now on the screen, this is the 4th iteration of the shot. We did it 4 times before coming to this, and when I'm saying 4 times, it can be anything. It can be a light placement that's not convincing enough. It can be a silhouette that's taking too much importance in the frame, you know, that you don't really want to see it, but it still has to be there. It can be just that pink light reflecting in the background that traces the car, that detaches the car from the background, or even just the guy walking behind the car, you know, just to animate a bit the background about like what's actually going on. But yeah, this shot alone was the 4th iteration that we had to do to actually make it, you know, a proper banger to be in the video, basically.
Yeah, that's important to touch, because like I don't know, like some people may think that you did a shot and it is also from the get-go, which is not necessarily true. Sometimes it is. You're just lucky enough that you have something in a shot and like, okay, the first iteration is already pretty good, but like there's a lot of reviews, things that you mentioned, like the light, some things are tangent to some corner, like, yeah, the element is tangent, so it's driving the attention to that, so let's remove that. So it's like meticulous study that you do in every single shot, and that's why people need to realize it. Like it is like sometimes like a 30-second movie, or like 40-second, like not even a minute, but it takes like so much work, so many hours of like reviewing, redoing, arranging the shot, re-rendering. It's like that. You can tell the struggle though. Like it is very real, but at the end, the outcome is always much better if you do that. If you go to that struggle, right?
Yes, of course. Like not saying like this is also on top of what you said. You know, like especially from an OEM standpoint, for example, when you're doing this like professionally, and you're doing it for a company, of course, all the cars have certain angles where you don't want to see it in, because the light just doesn't bounce off correctly from certain angles. So what you have to do as well as this is why I think I have this advantage of being a designer as well as a viz guy, is because I understand what we need to not see on the car. So it's really a tricky part as well to be the guy who sets up the lights, so it needs to light up enough of the car so you show what's of interest, but the car needs to go not far enough. I mean, it needs to go not too far so that you don't show what you don't want to see. And this is also a really time-consuming task where you actually have to, look at every single. This is also what we do. For example, when the camera is traveling from point A to point B, we render previs, because we need to see that the light is not touching any parts that you don't want to see as well. So all of these shots is like taking so long, and this is why we needed to develop the video in parallel of the design itself, to be able to make everything happen at the same time. Because if we had design done on one hand and then the shots done at another time, it would have taken us probably 6-7 months to come up with all this.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and you're right. That there's always that one angle that no one always wants to see. Like, oh God, that you cannot hit every angle perfectly when you're designing something, which is a struggle for us car designers as well. But yeah, like in being an exterior designer and directing the video, I think it definitely hits differently. It changes the perception, because you know how to highlight a surface, how to showcase a specific kind of design, right? Which sometimes we have to talk to viz guys and they're like not car guys, and we have to go through every shot explaining them basics of like how to highlight a car. Many times we had to go through that, and that's very difficult. And it's for you. It's specifically, it's pretty good to be both. I think it's a different kind of a designer that we are creating. The newer generations, like people from my generation, they don't even know how to highlight the car. Might as well rendering one.
Yeah, definitely. And I think we've had this problem like in the studio many times before. I think before the Milan studio actually opened. So the very classic way of dealing with viz, the company will have multiple viz agency that will handle the thing on the side, but they're not, like you said, always car guys. So they don't really know what you don't want to see, and they will start shooting cars from strange angles, which doesn't really make sense for the designer, because of course when we're designers, there's always like, I'm thinking even when you're working in 3D or when you're sketching the car, there's always the view you like to see the car in. You know, there's always that view, that one where you see this is the best view of the car. But then when people who are not car designers and they start trying to put the camera above the car and showcasing it to you in ways you personally have not even seen the car yet, and you just discover that thing, and it's like, it's kind of weird to see it from this angle. And you discover all these views and you're like, this is not something I want to show people. And the agency, you need to teach them about how to read volumes, about how to highlight that thing. And it's true that on our side as well, for the Era concept car that came out last year, because as designers we understand how to use Blender and how to do this, the whole press pack, the release pack for the car was actually done by ourselves as well in the Milan studio, because the big bosses in China, they preferred how we presented the car rather than the agencies. And so now, because he saw what we did for Era, they are starting to considering making us also more vis oriented. So we will take on other projects from the company, not only stuff that we do here ourselves. But it just shows the discrepancy there is between people who are supposed to sell your car but they don't understand it, and designers who suddenly have the means to sell the cars just as much as the design agency. So I think this is a fantastic moment. If you have like any inspirations, you like movies, for example, you have all the softwares that allows you to do all these things for free, you know, which is amazing.
No, yeah, that's awesome. That's pretty good. And like you said, you guys have all the knowledge, like to do better vis than studios, which is a hard time for the studios, but I'm not sorry for them. I'm happy for you guys, to be very honest.
Thank you, Arthur.
All right, Anurag, you have a question?
Hi, yeah. Thank you so much, Rishabh. Thank you so much, Edouard, for this opportunity and your presentation. We primarily wanted to ask two questions. The first one was if in these sort of projects, which are purely conceptual, are any professional directors ever brought in to guide the project, or like do you guys or is it on to the visualization and the animation designers to build everything from scratch these days in design studios like the GAC? And I suppose even Arthur can also answer on his insight regarding this.
So, but it's a good question. So first of all, there's also because this whole CC3 thing is a bit of a side project from our studio that we try to incorporate in the whole lore of the company. We don't really have a huge budget for these projects, so we need to manage what we can do ourselves, what we cannot do, and we absolutely need people doing for us, and also stuff that we just don't need. For example, we're not model makers. We cannot make models, so majority of the budget was allocated to actually building the models for the design week in April. But then everything else that we felt we could kind of tackle on, and that we kind of have the trust already of the company. For example, CC3, the video came after the press images we did for Era. So they were kind of okay for letting us deal with the video. And they also didn't mind that long. Stefan presented this idea originally, like the idea of traveling to our big bosses in China. They said yes, and they just let us roll, basically. And then after, we just had to deal with Stefan. But it wasn't even mentioned at any point, because we know how much it costs to have agencies doing these things for us. It's in the hundreds of thousands of euros. So we didn't have the budget for that. So we just said that we will make this cool little outside the box movie, just to also make people understand, because this is really a video to express ourselves, our studio in Milan. It's not to be considered the expression of the company's wishes in the future. So we just said we're going to make something like we're making videos for ourselves. We're just making it to the standards of like a company's expectations, basically. and we were 3 or 4 guys working on it. Like 3 guys were helping me. I was working on it full time, but it's good to also have. It was a team of really young people as well, and we all share the same references. We share the same visual references. We watch the same movies and all this, so it was easy to communicate. And I think in the end, it was much more corresponding to what we wanted to show than any other company agencies could have made out of this project.
Thank you so much. There was one small question that one of my teammates here also had, which was also what kept us very engaged in your videos was how do you keep us how do you keep your viewers captivated the entire duration? And even we have done some animation projects for our design projects for some companies. Even in them, we sort of when we are making this animation, not every single moment is so captivating. Sometimes we are building up to something that might captivate us later, but in your creations, we are always we are very engaged. Every single frame is so interesting. We can sort of still see small bits of Easter eggs and details everywhere. So how do you build that?
So this has a lot to do with what Arthur was mentioning 5 minutes ago. Is the every single shot basically is crafted to a certain intention. So I understand the struggle of. To me, it's a question of intensity. You know, like some shots have more intensity. Some shots may feel really easy to make because the story and what you want to tell in that shot is already there, so you don't have to do much because the story itself carries a lot of intensity in the shots you're making. For example, the video of the silica was I did, for example, for all the shots where the car was in movement or the camera was shaking. You had the stroboscopic effect on the movement. Everything was already there. I could have shot anything and it would have looked nice because the story itself was being told by itself. But then you go on to more static shots where you actually need to show the car, and suddenly you're in this question. And even yourself, when you're making the video, you're like, yeah, but going from that shot where everything is in movement to this shot where the car is still, how do I make even my own self feel not like bored by what I'm actually making? And what it comes down to is the composition, of your shot, and also the details you can add into, like what I was saying to Rishav, just maybe put something in the frame that can make it interesting, so that people, when they look at it, they just don't see one boring shot. They see it as an opportunity for you to bring information in the shot. Maybe it's an indication of a location. If the car is on the concrete, you want to show the car. Maybe you put some logo on the floor that displays information, or a character interactions, a time of the day. Anything that gives information will help sell like a boring shot more interesting than what it is. Because I get the struggle. Even sometimes for me, I have to in my own mind tell myself that I need to show the car in certain angles because those are the cool angles. But then it ends up being really boring in contrast of the shots where the car is actually driving. So how do I make them interesting? I just add the places that will. I just add features that will help tell a story that is more interesting. For example, in the video with the silica, I just put it in a warehouse. I made it really dark. I put like car lifts in the back. I put like speakers on the ground, so it helps tell a bit more about the personality of the car, rather than just it being in the studio shots and everything is white around and people get bored after 3 seconds. So yeah, it comes down to the intention and what information can you bring into the frame, other than just the car itself, basically.
Thank you so much. This was incredibly insightful. Thank you so much.
No problem. Thank you.
All right. Last question, Francesco. You want to go ahead?
Yeah, hello. First of all, thank you so much, and congratulations to all the team. I think everyone here really admires, and thank you, Rishav, for organizing this workshop. So very, very cool. What we were saying before about the shots not necessarily showing the car all the time. Actually, I thought this a lot in the compound video you made about those modified Porsches. And I saw this because like in those shots, like it's amazing. Like you have so many cars, so many elements that you need to showcase. But actually in the video, I had the feeling you don't see anything. Everything is very dark, but it makes you feel very engaged. And what Arthur was saying before as well, every shot is still like something that you would put in a poster. So that's something very cool. It's just a note. And I had two questions. Very quick ones. So the first one is in such a short time, 2 months, you said, more or less. Do you build the scenes in the parallel with the design? A little bit, you said this earlier, but I'm wondering, like, since, as you said, the car has different surfaces, etc. So while maybe the modelers are building the cars, do you put some, I don't know, some cubes, or I don't know, I'm just saying some cubes, but it could be anything. And in the meantime, building the scenes, or you wait for the cars to be finished and then you start the environment building?
So when I start building the scene, for example, I follow the storyboard. I know, for example, that the three-wheeler at some point will be in the airport. So I start building an airport scene, you know, and as I said, if something already exists, I'm not going to build it myself. I'm going to either buy it offline or download it, because it just saves me time to do it. I just end up playing with the blocks, you know, around the scene, where I will be like, I put my camera there. First thing I will start to do is see composition, like where do I put the warehouse, where do I put the car, where do I put the plane in the background, and all this, and also light the scene really quickly just to see what kind of atmosphere I can get. And but it's true, like you said, we were doing the project, the video and the design was done in parallel. So what I did is that because when Stefan selected the 3 cars, we already kind of had the Blender models, you know, they were really quickly done, but the shape and the proportions of the car were already there. So of course I was working with those shapes in the beginning, which weren't the final design at all, but it already gave me a feeling of what I could do with them when I had the final model. And with every iteration and with every modification that was brought to the cars in Alias and others, I would just re-import them into the scene, check if the camera was showing anything that we didn't want it to see, and if not, I could just leave the camera like that. But it's true, like there was several car. I mean, there was one car that had to that we had to redo quite a lot, because the car changed a lot since the beginning of the project. It had more glass surfaces on it, so we had to make sure that, and because glass is very reflective, we had to make sure of all the reflection on the car. So yeah, but it was a constant back and forth. But the good thing about this, like I said before, is that because everyone in the studio is capable of doing multiple roles in the studio, the modelers being able to understand Alias, for the modelers being able to understand Blender, for example, was really helpful. For example, if they finish the 3D model and I don't have the time to update the scene, I would just tell them what scene it is. They would update the model in the scene from aliases themselves. And then the next day I come in, I open the file, the new version of the car is already there. I can just texture it and we're back to working on it, you know. So it's really good to have like all these polyvalent people in the studio who are just, and also communication wise, is because we all work on the same thing all the time. We know exactly what's going on at what point, and the communication is really easy with people like this.
Okay, thank you so much. And sorry, a very second quick question, and then I thank you. Today, with you know, a lot of AI technology is coming in, and from this year, also video editing and video generating start to be a thing. Of course, I just wanted to ask if you guys or you personally are already exploring this kind of road, if it's applicable today, or today, you know, maybe it's not mature enough. We need to wait maybe 1 more year or a couple more years.
We know about Sora from OpenAI. That's the system that generates videos, AI videos, basically. So I think we're really far from when the video will just generate a clip that you can directly use in an edit, because simply the video doesn't understand like the concept of Easter eggs or symbolism in video and composition guides and all this, because it just takes stuff interpret it and give it back to you. But where I found it was interesting to use it was into searching interesting lighting, and also for grading, for example. That would be the main thing I would use. For example, if I tell it to describe, for example, if I just described to AI that we had the three-wheelers, that we needed a view where we saw the side, and we needed it to be an airport setting, it would be interesting to see what it come up with, because, of course, as designers and all this, when you have this little time, you tend to go for the most obvious, way of doing it with the minimum of twist you can put on the video. So, of course, I think the video we made for 63 could have been better if we had more time, to really deep dive into different ways of filming some topics. But for the time we had, I would have said that, yeah, if we had an AI video assistant, basically, I would say would have helped for storyboarding as well. Really quickly be able to send something to China to tell them, this is the kind of angle and lights and vibe we want to go for in this video. Just say yes or no. And if yes, we rebuild everything in 3D. It's really quick to validate something with them as well. I would say AI is really useful for early creative phases, but in the final one, you still need humans to build everything and put stuff there intentionally, basically.
Thank you. Yeah, I totally agree. Okay, just wanted to know how you guys were using, and thank you. Thank you so much.
No problem.
Chaco, you have something to ask?
Just a last question. I think it's more like a general question I want to ask you. Like, I followed your work from when you were starting to do like still images to Blender models to adding like more and more visuals, more and more storytelling, and then finally like you jump into like little animations, and then that kind of progressed into like this full-fledged, beautiful like storytelling, right? So like a lot of guys here, I think we're all like, where to start, feeling a little bit intimidated, just some advice, if you can give us, how to improve.
I remember when I started doing 3D was in end of my second year at Strat. But I remember like 3D being a topic we could, even when I was starting at school, we could feel that 3D was becoming a topic, And I remember my first year at Strat, when this question of polygonal modeling was becoming a thing. I was actually so scared of 3D. I was like, I don't know how to actually visualize something I drew in 3D to visualize it in 3D, But then Blender happened. I remember Blender. I actually quit Blender 4 times before actually starting using it.
Yeah.
It's okay to not be. Familiar or even comfortable around the software at the beginning. I remember a friend of mine had to bring me back into Blender a 4th time for me to actually start using it. And since then, I have not quit the software. But I had this moment where I was fighting against Blender in 2018, 2019. I was on and off for like 2 years. I couldn't get into it. And then finally, 2020, I actually started using it like proficiently, like every day. And it was for only one reason, is that it was for a project in 5th year. We started to have deadlines, and they wanted to see some sort of 3D model or some sort of turntable. So I had no choice but to actually get myself into it. And then it's also because I also watch a lot of movies. So if you're as interested in movies or video games even as I am, Blender gives you this freedom of being at the same time the director of photography, the director of the movie, the screenwriter. You can basically make movies all by your own if you're interested enough. And there's so much resources on YouTube as well. I think I have never encountered a single problem on Blender that YouTube haven't solved for me till this day. There's always someone on the internet who has asked the question like 2 or 3 years before you. And then it's just being constantly interested in what's happening. I've came to a point where I also read like Blender updates when they come out, just to see if there are new ways where I can incorporate features that they've added in the software that can facilitate the way I work. Because that's the thing as well. Once you define a certain pipeline, a certain workflow for yourself that combines 2D sketches, Photoshops, 3D corrections, video grading, and all this, and you know exactly how to do it, it just becomes second nature. Like you don't even think about it when you do it. So I would say the first thing is that just it's okay to be intimidated, but like be open-minded enough so that you can change your opinion on something. Took me 3 years to actually get into it, so I think it's fine to say that, you know, basically if you want it bad enough, you can get into it. It's fine, you know. And don't stay on your first impression of 3D, you know, but in general, things can change with time actually.
Nice. Yeah, I think this is more for like the younger guys who are like in college or starting out, you know.
Yeah.
Just keep pushing, right?
Yeah. Honestly, it's just like yeah. I mean, I remember even my own self, like 4 or 5 years ago, I was scared of Blender, like because the UIs was, you know, I'm talking about Blender, but it can be anything, you know. I don't know if you're trying to learn Houdini, if you're trying to learn Unreal, if you're trying to learn Fusion, Blender, Maya, anything. I remember I was scared by Blender, so I just didn't go back to it until the day I actually needed it for something, and I just kept on using it because I just saw how easy it was to use. And I mean, once you get familiar with the interface, it's just a whole world opening to yourself.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much.
No problem.
All right. I think we are done here, and thank you so much again, Edouard, for curating all this, and give a warm regards to your team, like from all of us, that we are really inspired by what you guys are doing, and there's a huge fan base in India, and everyone really looks forward to what you and your team updates every year. And yeah, just it's like Art said, it's a whole new breed of designers now. We are not anymore who just does pretty sketches. We are, like you said, everything like a package altogether. And yeah, all the best to you. I know you're also like pretty young in the industry, and you've already created such an impact. But yeah, just all the best, and I hope we get to see each other someday.
Yeah, hopefully, I think, and yeah, I would like to. I mean, thank you for giving me the opportunity as well to talk about such an important topic.
Yes.
You know, today in our industry, I've actually wanted to have a platform to start talking to people about this, because I feel like it's so much more than it was like 20 years ago. You know, 20 years ago, just to design cars is done. It's
Exactly.
selected, gets to production. You know, now it's like just for even students, there's so many people in this industry now that if you want to be able to sell your vision, you have to actually give something to people where they can see your vision. So it's much more than just pretty sketches. But yeah, thank you for this opportunity to talk to people, and I also wish that people got something out of it, you know. And yeah, I hope that more people will start thinking about this, and it will help people, you know, in the long run, because in this industry is only going to be expecting more from people, you know. So it's a good thing to be able and to be aware of what they're actually wanting. So I hope.
Yeah, like you said, like you said in the beginning, Stefan just asked you guys to have the 3 views, but you guys ended up making a whole cinematic movie. So that's how it is, right? That's the expectation of the companies right now, but eventually it's gonna get crazier. So yeah, thanks to everyone for taking time. I saw at some point we had 100 house full, and this video is gonna be on YouTube, so I think it's gonna be available to everyone. So all right, thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Talk to you guys soon.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Cheers to this community.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Thank
you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.